Hi guys, see you again on your favorite channel, Shania Studio. This time we will tell about the life of a famous noblewoman who did a lot of heinous deeds just because she wanted to keep her young. How's the story? Just go on with the story. Elisabeth Bathory was born on the 7th of August, 1560, in the Kingdom of Hungary. Elisabeth Bathory was born into the richest and oldest noble family in Transylvania. Elisabeth also has sufficient education, and a high social position. Elisabeth Bathory is also a cousin of the King of Poland, namely Stephen Bathory. Elisabeth's father named George VI Bathory, and her mother named Anna Bathory. Since childhood Elisabeth suffered from epilepsy, which was caused by inbreeding her parents. At that time it was believed the disease could be cured with how to take the blood of a person who does not have epilepsy and then rub the blood onto the lips of a person with epilepsy, or it can be done by mixing the blood into the food of the person with epilepsy. Since childhood Elisabeth was trained by her family to be cruel. Elisabeth was also brought to witness the death sentences of the executed defendants. And Elisabeth was also taught about Satanism and witchcraft by her family members, who were proficient in them. Elisabeth was engaged at the age of 10 to Ferenc Nadasdy. At the age of 13 years, before the marriage with his fiancée, Elisabeth was suspected of being pregnant. The father of her womb was a farmer's son, and then Elisabeth was hidden by her parents until she gave birth. After giving birth, the child is given to a woman who lives in the area. But the evidence of her pregnancy appeared long after Elisabeth's death. Therefore it is often debated whether it is true or not. Then when Elisabeth was 15 years old and her fiancé, Ferenc Nadasdy, were married on the 8th of May, 1575, about 4,500 guests were invited to their wedding party. And after their wedding, Elisabeth got a gift, namely a castle called Countess in Slovakia, or the castle was known as Countess Castle. In the nobility class, Elisabeth's position is higher than her husband. Therefore Elisabeth refuses to change her last name to Elisabeth Nadasdy. She wants to keep her name, namely Elisabeth Bathory. In 1578 was appointed commander of the Hungarian army, to fight against the Ottoman. While her husband was away for war, Elisabeth managed business and plantation affairs. In 1585, gave birth to a daughter who was named Anna Nadasdy. Then Elisabeth gave birth to 4 other children. Then in 1601, her husband experienced a debilitating pain in his leg. Until 1603, Ferenc Nadasdy was permanently disabled. And on the 4th of January, 1604, Ferenc Nadasdy died. At the age of Elisabeth 40 years old, Elisabeth was afraid to lose her beauty due to aging. Until one day a servant was combing Elisabeth's hair. Then the maid accidentally pulled Elisabeth's hair. Elisabeth was angry and slapped the maid until it bled. The maid's blood hit Elisabeth. Then Elisabeth saw herself changing to be more youthful. And from that moment on, Elisabeth believed that the blood would make her look younger. Finally, in order to make herself not grow old, Elisabeth also tortured her servants, who were still virgins, because Elisabeth believed that it was the blood of a woman who was still a virgin that would make her look youthful. The servants were tortured very cruelly. They were beaten, mutilated, and deprived of food until they died. And even their blood was also accommodated in Elisabeth's bath. Then Elisabeth would bathe and soak in that tub. Elisabeth also drank their blood. Elisabeth's cruel acts, she did not do alone, but Elisabeth was also assisted by 4 of her servants, who were her accomplices. After running out of servants, Elisabeth creates a fictitious job, to work in her castle as a maid, and will be given a large salary. Then many girls from the peasants of the village came to Elisabeth's castle to work. But unfortunately they were all deceived by Elisabeth, and in the end they too will end their lives with Elisabeth's torture. Initially the bodies were buried in a religious way, by religious leaders. And Elisabeth told him that the play servant died in a work accident. But due to the increasing number of victims, the religious leaders then refused to carry out their duties. Because the religious leader was suspicious of the death of the maid servants who worked in Elisabeth's castle. Elisabeth threatened the religious leader not to spread the news about the servants who died in her castle. Finally, because the religious leaders refused to help Elisabeth bury the bodies, Elisabeth also disposed of the bodies at random, such as in the garden, river, behind her castle, and in the forest, so that the corpses were eaten by animals. Having exhausted the girls from the village, Elisabeth turned to the lower noble girls, to learn manners, in her castle. Until one day one girl from the lowly noble managed to escape and report to the authorities what happened at Elisabeth's castle. Then King Matthias of Hungary ordered Georgi III, who was Elisabeth's cousin, to check the report. On the 30th of December, 1610 they came and searched Elisabeth's castle. During the search they found the body of a girl who had died of blood loss on the dining table. And some girls hanging, also some girls in cages, being held to wait their turn. They also found dozens of girl corpses under the rotting castle. After the search, Elisabeth and her 4 servants were finally arrested. During the trial Elisabeth never came to court. Then Elisabeth and her 4 accomplices were convicted of torturing and killing 612 young girls. 4 of his servants were sentenced to death, while Elisabeth was not sentenced to death. Because Elisabeth has a noble status, Elisabeth will be locked up for life, in her castle. Then the doors and windows of the bedroom were closed with a wall, and only a small hole was left in the wall, which would be used to put food and drink in. And on the 21st of August, 1614, was found dead by his castle guards, in a prone position. Since then Elisabeth became the cruelest woman in history. And Elisabeth is also known as a vampire woman. Even Elisabeth is also entered into the Guinness Book of Record as a female killer with the most victims in the world. That's the end of our story this time. Hope you like it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Sonia Studio. Thank you. See you.